Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It is I, your host, Mr. Sean, and today we are going into a seldom explored subreddit, which instead of r/neckbeard stories, we are instead looking at r/talesofneckbeard. This subreddit is not quite as active as r/neckbeard stories, but neckbeard stories has been a little dry lately, so I decided to look in and see what's shown up in my absence, and we do have several stories for you, possibly even enough for 2 videos, so we'll see where that goes. Before we start on today's Tales of Beardery, of course, let me tell you about my business, Chimera Miniatures. I had a question on a previous video as to whether or not I 3D printed these miniatures. I can say that I do not. I do not 3D print minis. What I do is I take bits and pieces from various minis and I cobble them together into something you will not find anywhere else. There are a million people on Etsy and eBay offering you 3D printed, sometimes even painted miniatures, but what they are not offering is something that you won't find anywhere else because it is a one-of-a-kind, custom kit-bashed chimera, so to speak. Not only is offering you one-of-a-kind pieces my business model, it also just is my hobby. I love seeing what I can make, and I love being able to then share that with all of you. And of course, there are some miniatures I sell that are simple repaints. I also sell various collectibles, Squishmallows, anime figures, even the occasional Pokemon card. It's all available to view and buy if you just click the link that is in the description. That will take you to all my links, which will then lead you to my eBay or Etsy. It also contains links to my socials and email. If you'd like to contact me directly, I would be happy to make you something extra special. Also, if you have a story you'd like to share, please follow that link to my own subreddit, r/Mr. Sean Reads Stories, and if you post something there, it might show up on this channel. And without taking up any more of your valuable viewing time, let's get into today's first story, which was posted by user Europa Smalls and is called My Bio Dad is a MGTOW Neckbeard, the Summer Trip. So let me tell you about my bio dad. Bio mom is just as bad, but that's another story. He's narcissistic, a MGTOW, red-pilled, homophobic, transphobic, racist, sexist, and the list goes on. This summer, I went on a weekend trip with my stepmom, Bio Dad, and younger sisters. The whole 6-hour road trip, Bio Dad was making fun of my stepmom and spouted racist and homophobic jokes around everyone. I didn't spend much time with my Bio Dad because it was insufferable to be around his toxicity. One of the things he said was, "If a terrorist held a gun to your head, would you say you're a woman? I am non-binary." He used any and all slurs frequently, and he thinks he's all macho and tough, but he tucks his tail and runs when everyone is against him. He was convinced that my stepmom brainwashed me because I told him to stop being a jerk to her. She never did anything wrong and yet was being a belligerent prick. Yeah, he was being a belligerent prick. I honestly can't thank my stepdad enough for raising me so I didn't grow up and become a douchebag narcissistic asshole like my bio parents. Well, that one was short and sweet. Your dad sounds awful. I would love it if there was more to this story, but as of right now, there does not seem to be a part 2, and this was from 8 months ago, but I will keep a lookout because I would love to hear more about Bio Dad MGTOW Neckbeard. It always sucks when people just give you a taste and then they just don't follow through. That sucks, but that was a good short story to whet the appetite, so to speak. Next up, we have a story from Miko Gore and is entitled My Weeaboo Ex-Boyfriend I Met at a Local Con. Hey r/Tales of Neckbeards. Today I'm here to talk about one of the worst experiences of my life, and I'm going to put a trigger warning before I get more in detail. Trigger warning: self-harm, suicide, abuse for some parts of this story, so if you're sensitive to these topics, don't read. Okay, so 2018 was the year I decided to start going to conventions again. I hadn't gone because of money and lack of cosplays, and a local con was happening near me which I wanted to go to. Since 2 of my favorite Vocaloid producers, one of which has a voice provider for a Vocaloid that at that point were going to be guests at the con. Vocaloid was what started my journey and helped me slowly get into making music more often, but that's beside the point. Day 1 of the con comes and there's this guy. Let's call him Dollar Store Dante, DD for short. fucking love it. Since his DMC3 Dante cosplay wasn't the greatest, and he believed in bleaching his hair for the cosplay, which literally killed most of his hair due to it being so thin, DD approaches me and asks, "Hey, are you blank?" mistaking me for someone else since we had cosplayed the same character, Diva from Overwatch. "No, sorry, I'm Miko. Just gonna use a shortened version of my username for this," and I walked off into the vendor hall. I went and bought a few things, and got something to eat as I had a small amount of time to kill before I was on an Ask a Cosplayer panel. I waited for the panels to start, mine included, along with a few others I enjoyed, attended them, and walked around for a while, met up with a few friends, went and grabbed a nice coffee, and attended a few after-hours NSFW panels, and eventually went home. Now, day 2 is where it really kicked off. I only had one panel to help with that day. It was a small Fullmetal Alchemist panel, just some bad acting done by a few weebs I used to be friends with, but I'm not now due to personal reasons. That's a story for another time, the weeb that lived with me. And before that, me and a few friends gathered and did some anime dances in the open back part of the vendor hall. That's when DD came back. It took me a bit to recognize him due to the fact that I had my time divided in my head of what I'd be doing for the rest of the day at the con. While we were walking back, it clicked with me. He was blending in with the group pretty well. "Wait, you're DD, right?" "Yeah, that was me yesterday." He smiled, seemed really cool at first, and he seemed to fit my vibe well. The panel goes on, we're having a fun time, and after the con we all go to Denny's. Mind you, some hippie kid in a kigurumi in the parking lot was smoking a J, and I was like, "Ayo!" So they let me puff a few times before I headed to my friend's car. DD rode in the back seat, and I was controlling the aux. DD seemed to enjoy my music tastes a lot, as he had similar tastes or liked the same artists. I started to sort of have a crush on him. I was dumb, and I was only like 2 months into being 18. A few weeks go by, and we're texting. He invites me to a party at his place. A few of his friends were there, and it was your typical stoner, messy college guy apartment. We kept looking at each other the whole night. Little did I know what an absolute fuck I was getting myself into. I mean, yeah, this beard seems to really be good at not letting the mask slip right away. I'm kind of surprised. Like, other than a bad cosplay, you haven't really mentioned any, like, super beardy traits as of yet. So it's like, man, when does the beard show up? Like, I know he will, but I'm just interested. Like, this guy was really good at hiding, it seems. Most beards aren't. We see each other on a more frequent basis at that point, and then we agree that I would move in. However, he wasn't open about what his diagnoses were, and he left most of them untreated, causing him to have explosive anger. When he wasn't angry, he was literally trying to be an IRL edgy anime guy. He thought he was a main character. When he would catch me cringing or not agreeing with him, he would scream at me and harm himself. 2 occasions really bad to where I needed to call 911 and he got admitted the second time. He would somehow bring up anime into anything. Like, he really thought he was this edgy protag guy. But he was a shell of a person who would throw a tantrum anytime someone wouldn't agree with them. I eventually told him I was done and I was packing my things. I mean, I'm guilty of bringing up The Simpsons whenever possible, but, you know, there are worse things. I guess I could pretend to be a cringy anime guy. "Miko, don't do this." He looked at me like he was gonna punch me. Instead, he grabbed my phone, threw it, and smashed the screen to bits. "DD, what the fuck is your issue?" I couldn't believe it. I shoved him away. But he came back swinging, and he almost landed a punch in my stomach. I turned so he hit my back instead. I ran out of the small apartment screaming and crying until I found someone who would let me contact my parents and police. I haven't heard from him in years, and I really hope I don't have to ever again. He was a real weeb from hell. If I remember anything else, I'll add edits later. TLDR, my weeaboo ex was unstable and mentally and physically abusive. I mean, I'm sure there's some parts you left out, but I don't even know if I'd call this guy a beard. This guy just seems like a no-good piece of shit who happens to have, like, weeby interests. That doesn't necessarily make him a beard, but he is an absolute garbage person. Guys, as someone who was receiving psychiatric help from the age of about 3 or 4 to the age of 25, if you have diagnoses, don't leave them untreated. Like, if you know you need help, get help. You can't necessarily do it on your own. I mean, you can maybe get there, like I have, where you can manage your symptoms without the need for psychiatric help or medication, but it takes a long time to get there. And, there's no shame if you never do. If you need help, get help. Up next, we have a post shared by user TheRedHound19, but originally comes from the Am I the A-Hole subreddit, posted by user/ThrowItInTheCorner10. So this one's called Neckbeard Employee Harasses Woman, but the original title is Am I the A-Hole for Leaving a Bad Review on a Small Store? So my boyfriend and I have a tradition for our anniversary that we each go to a store and separate, and after we buy each other a bunch of gifts, we exchange in the car. It's silly and cute. I'm gonna steal this. This sounds awesome. We walked into this new mom and pop anime store. I am a huge anime nerd and my boyfriend likes video games, which they also sell. We separate and I go look at stuff for my boyfriend. A worker walks up to me and starts chatting, then points at my leg. I have a pretty big tattoo of Kakashi from Naruto on my thigh, among other anime tattoos. He asked if I got that for my boyfriend and I said no. I've always loved Naruto, and then showed him my other tattoos, which include a Leaf Village symbol, Gaara of the Sands Gourd, and a piece of my arm of Asuma Sarutobi. Don't know that one. He started quizzing me on the lore of the anime, and I told him that I wouldn't have spent $1,000 on tattoos of anime if I didn't know about, and I didn't appreciate him trying to catch me in a gotcha moment. He told me he didn't believe a girl could ever fully understand the real story of Naruto and the depth behind it, lol. Okay guys, Naruto is not a very deep anime, alright? It's got a story, it's got a plot, it has lore. It is not deep, alright? I'm sorry. That might just be because I'm personally not a fan, but dude, don't be a gatekeeper, especially not on something as simple as Naruto. I mean, and I'm sorry, even if something is complicated, don't gotcha somebody. Just let them enjoy what they enjoy for whatever reason they enjoy it. Don't feel like you're enjoying it better than them, alright? That's dumb. I told him I didn't need his services and he can go back to the front desk. He told me I was a rude wannabe bitch and walked into the back, and I continued purchasing my items. Sorry. I left a review later. TLDR, if you're feminine presenting, enter with caution. One of the employees will call you a bitch when you don't want to prove your nerd cred to him. The owner left a comment on my review asking for an email conversation and asked that I take down my review because people have started complaining about this employee as well, and his sales revenue has dropped. I told him I wouldn't, and maybe he shouldn't hire misogynists if he doesn't want bad reviews. My friends tell me I'm overreacting. Am I the a-hole? Now, while I cannot see what Am I the a-hole responded from here, it does look like they were given the not the a-hole classification. And no, they're not. They're not the a-hole in this case. This guy was being an absolute piece of shit. You are working at an anime and video game store. Your job is to sell anime and video games, and you're not going to do that by gatekeeping and being rude to potential customers. I've told stories before about a store called Fog of War where they just wouldn't give you the time of day, but there's another store that also no longer exists. This one used to be, well, it actually had two locations, one at a mall in Dayton, Ohio, and one that lasted a little longer but is now gone, that was in Lancaster, Ohio, and it was called Super Game Team. And while the one in Lancaster was just kind of a meh store, the one in Dayton also kind of meh in a lot of ways, but it had a employee that was kind of terrible. I will say there was a review on their website, on their Facebook at the time, that was not, I don't think it was fair, because apparently this woman was giving them the business because she came in one day and there was a customer, not one of the employees, mind you. He wasn't engaging with the customer. The customer was just going on a rant about how all women in Dayton are trash, and the employee was just kind of like, I don't know what to do. So she's like, I can't believe the review's like, I can't believe he would let this guy say this kind of thing. I'm from Dayton and this offends me. And I mean, the employee was an ass anyway for other reasons, and his response, which did make me laugh to this review, was, I mean, are you trash? ? But no, like, you would go in and this guy, the same guy, would always just act like you were bothering him just by being in his store. Like, very unfriendly, wasn't worried about actually making a sale. I mean, no wonder that store has left Dayton a long time ago. And also, it's like, the owner telling the OP to take the review down because now other people are complaining about the guy. It's like, well, maybe you should get rid of the guy. Like, get rid of the guy, address the reviews going, hey, we've heard you loud and clear. This guy's been a problem. He is no longer part of the store. We invite everyone back, and do like a 15% off sale or something to like be like, hey, we're sorry, we see there was a problem, we corrected it, we would love for you to come back, have 15% off this weekend. Like, do something to gain your customers besides trying to hide the fact that you have an employee that apparently you won't do anything about. That's just simple good business. Next up, we have a post from user Deleted, and it is my mother's boyfriend, the pedo beard. Oh boy. I just want to apologize for any spelling or grammar errors as I'm on mobile. Also, I have to warn that I was 10 or 11 when I met him and he's a pedo, so if you're uncomfortable with pedophilia, you might want to go to another story. I'm a trans man, and this was before my realization. In my family, we've had a long history of early puberty and large chest sizes, so I was practically beard bait at 10 or 11, standing at 5 feet 0 inches and being a D cup. Today's pedo beard looked just like a neckbeard, although his beard was fully developed. He was extremely overweight, bald, and wore only his beloved work clothes. But he's remarked if he could wear an anime t-shirt to work, he would. I don't want to say his name, so I'll refer to him as Sun. That's Sun with a U for anyone, not reading along. My oh-so-glorious mom, she's also beard bait, but to an extreme. She's 4'11", a double D cup, and has a big butt. She's really hyper-feminine, but hates anime, video games, and anything violent, which is the opposite of pedobeard, but somehow they met from the opposite ends of the spectrum. They fought a lot, but what united them was that we were living with him until further notice. I'll refer to her as E. When E first moved us in, we were just looking for an escape. She planned on starting a candy business. Her plans started to sink throughout the relationship, though. Sun was a slob on the low. His place reeked of neglected water damage and BO. One of his main obsessions was with John Mayer. He swore that he was related by a distant cousin. He would sit us down and demand to watch the same music video over and over with him. It got to a point where my mom would leave the house to hang out with friends. Since I had no friends or connections, I was stuck with him. When we were alone, he would hang around in his underwear since I'm cool like that. His underwear was tidy whities with his junk nearly out. He never tried to touch me, but referring to an 11-year-old as a busty young lady and making boob jokes like, "You better not bend down in class," is enough to get to you. In one of our hang sessions, he introduced me to the anime Naruto, insisting that anime was the best television. I wish I didn't agree to watch because I unlocked an entire new obsession in him. He would go on rants about how much he loved anime and his waifus, but he couldn't stand Asian people. I remember one remark specifically, "If those Wuhans ever walk near my house, I'm just gonna shoot 'em." So I alerted E. At first she told me to hide in my room whenever he was home, but eventually she confronted him. Needless to say, he kept to himself for a while. He was kind of sulky until we managed to move out. Sorry if this wasn't as interesting as you hoped. Him and my mom are still in contact to this day, though. He's doubled down on his views and is insufferable. Damn, what is it with beards and Naruto? Like, my friend back in the day who was kind of a beard himself really tried to get me into Naruto, and I just could not understand the appeal. Like, it's not terrible, but it's like just okay as far as I'm concerned, and there's just this obsession with it. And not just by beards, but beards especially also seem to, like, they love their Naruto runs, and I don't know, I don't get it. Why of all shows, what is it about beards that, attracts them to this show? If you have a theory, please post that in the comments. I would love to hear why you think beards love Naruto so much as opposed to something like, I don't know, maybe Dragon Ball Z, which is equally as meh, but also very popular. My guess would also be, if I had to pick one that neckbeards would be obsessed with, I'd probably go with like Sword Art Online, because it's all about some dude becoming a god with his awesome skills in like a video game, in a scenario where that actually matters. Alright guys, I think we got time for one more story in this video, and this one is posted by user Mr. Orando423 and is entitled, My Brother's Ex-Friend, Handsy, the Dangerous Neckbeard. Hello Reddit. This isn't my first Neckbeard story on Reddit, but it is my first story on this sub. I hope it fits here. I have shared it on r/Moonhorse stories, however I've forgotten a lot of important details, and I've learned a little more about what exactly happened since the initial post. Also, I'd like to say that I've called this guy Handsy to protect his identity. Before I get into it, I'd like to let you know that most of this is either secondhand or word of mouth, so I'll be saying allegedly a lot. Major trigger warnings for threats of violence, alleged sexual harassment and or assault, small mentions of mental illness, and a little bit of high school drama. That last one, that's the major trigger warning. I'm sorry to be putting high school drama in these videos. As the title says, Handsy is an ex-friend of my brother, who I will call Bro. I first met Handsy at some point in 2016 when he came over to our house to play video games and watch YouTube, as friends do. Bro would also come over to his place a few times, and I didn't think anything of it. In around February or March of 2017, I went with Bro to spend the night at Handsy's, not because I wanted to hang out with him, but rather because we were without internet at the time. Looking back, his living situation wasn't the best. Handsy lived with his grandparents for some reason, and I think they might have lived in a trailer. I remember the inside being small, dimly lit, and kinda messy. Bro also recalls the house smelling like cat litter and cat piss, which I don't really remember. In fact, I'm kind of ignorant to bad smells because I used to live in a bedroom full of unwashed clothes. But that's a story for another time. I'll post it if anyone's interested. I mean, is the story just that you didn't wash your clothes? That doesn't sound like a complex narrative. Sometime after that, Bro stopped being friends with Handsy, and I wouldn't really see him again until junior year in 2018. Nothing too major happened that year, but we did share a Spanish class, and when Super Smash Bros. Ultimate came out, I'd play against him whenever we didn't have work to do. During this time, I've considered Handsy a friend, especially during senior year in 2019. When I was seated next to him in computer applications class. That year, Bro told me why he stopped being friends with Handsy. You see, there were rumors going around that Handsy had sexually harassed and or assaulted at least 13 girls. Bro told me about this one time Handsy attempted to follow Bro's girlfriend, now fiancé, down the hallway, and when she later confronted him, he told her, "That's just my dark side," as if he was an anime protagonist with a split personality. Bro told me about this other time when Handsy told another girl something along the lines of, "If you won't have sex with me, I'll shoot up the school." Bro also told me that one of the girls he set his sights on was a freshman, even though Handsy was 18 at the time, if I'm correct. Allegedly, whenever anyone called Handsy out on his bullshit over the internet, he'd cry to his grandma, accusing them all of cyberbullying him. I've also been told that his grandma babied him a bit and defended his actions, so I wouldn't doubt that she ate up all the bullshit coming out of his mouth. Needless to say, Bro had convinced me to stop being friends with Handsy. During computer applications class, I kind of gave him the silent treatment, promising myself to never talk to him again. However, one day during lunch, I moved away from a table where Handsy happened to be. Later that day, a friend of mine, who happens to be a girl, told me that Handsy told her that the reason why I stopped talking to him is because I hate him. He wasn't wrong about me hating him, but I really wasn't okay with him telling my friends about it. In fact, I have a suspicion that this might have been his attempt to drag me into this mess that he made, or that he was trying to guilt her into giving him favors, even though she's a lesbian. Later that day, at computer application, I told Handsy why I stopped talking to him, telling him that I no longer felt comfortable talking to him after being told what he'd done, that he'd done some very bad things. His response? He told me that the rumors are true, and that he had done those bad things a while ago. But I think that was when I tuned him out and focused on my work. I will give Handsy a little bit of credit for being honest and admitting to what he did, because it's better than denying that it happened at all, but I took him speaking the past tense with a grain of salt. I had a suspicion that he was trying to tell me that it had happened in the past, but he was lying about doing it more recently, or that it's all in the past and that everyone should just forget about it and leave him alone. I mean, if he wants to be left alone, that kind of seems like what's now happening because nobody wants anything to do with him, so, hey, he's getting what he wants, but I don't think that's what OP meant. Sometime later in the school year, I stopped seeing Handsy in class, or even in the hallways. I've heard rumors going around that he's been seeing the principal and allegedly a detective. Now, if you've made it this far, you probably think that this is the part where Handsy gets charged and maybe even gets on the sex offender registry. Well, prepare to be disappointed. I have no idea what exactly happened, but as far as I'm aware, they let him off the hook and even back into class shortly after that. You're probably wondering how the hell did he manage to talk his way out of trouble? Well, I'm just as lost as you are, but I have an idea. If Handsy had been, in fact, interviewed by a detective, I'm assuming that he told him that everyone who came forward with the allegations were all bullies, and that the entire student body was conspiring against him, and maybe they felt just enough pity for him to give up on the case, even though some of the girls had screenshots from what I've been told. I know this is complete bullshit, but I'm aware that there are a lot of schools that have principals who don't know how to handle situations like this, and I've heard that the principal of the high school I went to was a bit of a people pleaser, so it is plausible, unfortunately. Let's fast forward a bit to when my senior year was cut short by a disease that was sweeping the globe in 2020. I was shopping at my local Walmart, and I saw Handsy in uniform. I felt like that reinforced that Handsy had absolutely no consequences, but I later learned that it is possible for sex offenders to get jobs. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Sometime after that, Bro told me that he got another job at a Dunkin' Donuts, and if he got fired from Walmart, it was probably because he was consistently late. I can only imagine that if a detective had given up on his case, then a Walmart manager probably would have given him a minor slap on the wrist for groping a coworker. Bro told me that when he told Handsy his order, he told him something along the lines of, I didn't think you'd ever speak to me again. I wonder why. He apparently tried to make small talk with Bro by saying, I'd just like for you to know that I'm not like that anymore, before going off on a tangent on his Red Hood Halloween costume. I have no idea how to organically work this into this story, but at some point during one of our conversations, I noticed how disgusting his teeth were. They were thin, yellow, and crooked. I didn't say anything about it because I'm a nicer person than I should be. Now, I'm not one to shame someone for the way they look, but that's a little different from noticing when someone's oral hygiene is lacking. Having teeth that rotten is a bad sign in my opinion. Also, I've talked about what happened to a former co-worker of mine who went to the same school as me, and she told me that she was one of the girls he set his sights on. I feel like that gave me enough reason to believe that the rumors were true and the student body wasn't conspiring against Handsy. Speaking of work, I've recently been seeing him shopping at my job, and I hope that I can avoid having to bag his groceries because I want to stay as far away from him as possible. Also, at some point, Handsy texted Bro to try and excuse his actions by saying he was in a dark place at the time. His response, I don't care. Come near me or my girlfriend again, and I'll kick your ass. As far as I'm aware, this is where the story ends. Sorry about the disappointing ending, but there's really nothing we can do about it, especially after he managed to talk his way after getting charged. However, I have one last thing to say. If you were a parent and found out that your child is a sexual predator, what would you do? Well, I definitely think Handsy was coddled by his grandmother because of some kind of issue with his parents. Probably one either abandoned him or both did, and I get the sense that the other one at least was an unfit parent or possibly even in jail, and Grandma and Grandpa probably felt really bad about that and really babied him for, having such an unfortunate circumstance, and unfortunately that led him to, having his main character syndrome. But the sad thing is, when you're coddled by family and you get this main character ideology, that often doesn't translate outside the home. So while you're king of the castle at home, you easily become an outcast in the real world because other people don't know or don't care and aren't going to treat you the way Grandma and Grandpa do. This leads to feelings of ostracization, and also is usually what I would say, in many cases, is what causes them to become obsessed with things like anime and other outsider fringe medium, even though anime is not really all that outsider anymore. But, it definitely seems like he identifies with these lone, edgy, I'm all by myself and I have a dark side characters. And so this warped view combined with lack of actual social skills lead you to treating women like they're just something, or men if that's what you're into, but whatever gender you desire, you start treating them more like they're props in your inner narrative than, actual people. I feel like, there's a chance that because he was still in high school, whatever accusations were made, he might not have actually touched anybody, which is why he might have somehow managed to stay off the sex offender registry. He might have been given a stern talking to. He honestly might have been gone to juvie or had an expulsion for a minute. The fact that he could only get a job at like Walmart and Dunkin' Donuts, I mean, that might just be due to him being a poor worker and getting low marks in school, but that also could be that there is something on his record that is preventing him from seeking better employment. I honestly don't know if I agree with OP that he clearly got off scot-free. I mean, there's any number of things that could have happened and any number of ways he could have been punished, but I don't know. I don't think we have enough information. It is obvious, though, that this guy there was something wrong with him. And I will say, based on his really fucked up comment telling a girl that if she didn't sleep with him, he would shoot up the school, he's lucky he said that when he did and not more recently. Like, I think it was stated that this was like 2018 or earlier, because a threat like that in this day and age, oh my god, you would be arrested so quickly, because that is not something, at least especially in America, that we can joke about anymore. Not to say that the concept was ever funny, but it's definitely taken seriously in this day and age, because unfortunately it has to be. Anyway guys, that is the video today. There are several other stories that I did not get to with this one, and we will get to those in the next r/Tales of Neckbeard video, but until then, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, click the link, check out my eBay, check out my Etsy, reach out to me on my socials and my email, maybe buy a mini, maybe commission a mini. Anyway, the more minis I sell, the more videos I make. So, until next time guys, this is Chimera Miniatures, I'm Mr. Sean, and I hope you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.